On today's show, initially I was going to be talking about Lawrence Frank and the comments he made at a recent press conference, but breaking news as of Friday, the Clippers have signed a new player, Joshua Primo, that used to play for the San Antonio Spurs. Very controversial signing. He's been signed on a two-way. Going to be talking about that, Primo's history briefly, the ramifications of the signing, and what the Clippers are doing on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA and going into my 19th season as a Clipper fan this fall. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports, and NBA content. And Locked On Clippers, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Let me know what you think of the Josh Primo signing. Where do you stand on it? This came as a complete shock to me. And given the history of Josh Primo with the Spurs and why he was no longer playing for them this past season, I was very apprehensive when hearing that we signed him. I was thinking about the basketball fit as well. Why did we sign him? So we're going to be talking about all that in this episode. And also at the end, going to be hearing from Jeff Garcia, host of Locked On Spurs, to give us some more insight on what kind of player the Clippers just signed. But just some background on Josh Primo first before I get into what everyone's thinking of, and that is the incident or incidents that he had been involved in and accused of by the Spurs in his second season. So Josh Primo is from Canada. He played at Alabama for one season, a 6'6" combo guard. He was drafted 12th overall by the Spurs in 2021, so he was a lottery pick. Played in 50 games his rookie year, was the youngest player in the NBA at the time, and then just 4 games into his second season, Primo was waived by the Spurs on October 29th, 2022. Now, I remember when he was waived, that was a huge deal because a young, talented player, lottery pick, second year being waived by a rebuilding organization. It was shocking news. And then we heard that a psychologist, sports therapist, whatever, worked for the Spurs, alleged in a civil complaint against them that Primo had exposed his private parts to her 9 times during individual private sessions. The psychologist and the Spurs would settle that lawsuit 1 month later, but when I heard that, I was like, oh man, yeah, get him out of there. There's no place at all for these inappropriate kinds of things, especially making women feel uncomfortable in the workplace. That's a no-no, not just in the NBA, but in any sort of arena that you work in. Making women uncomfortable, period, whether it's at work or not, is a major no-no, but especially in the workplace, that is just not okay. 9 times exposing your genitals, as they say in the article. Don't even mean to sound really weird on this show, but that's what they said in the article. That's what we heard, that he exposed his private parts to this lady, or maybe to more ladies. The details are not fully all out there, but as far as the article written by Andrew Greif of the LA Times, it makes it sound like one female staffer, that one sports psychologist. The sheriff's office in Texas Bexar County, which includes San Antonio, this is from the article, opened a preliminary investigation into Primo last November. Its criminal investigations division then filed a criminal case for indecent exposure with the Bexar County's DA on May 18th. And a sheriff's spokeswoman said Friday by email that the case was now in the review process, I should say. And look, I saw the backlash from Clipper fans on social media. Obviously, you don't want a guy with that kind of reputation on the roster. It's just not a good look for the team. It's not a good look for the fans that have to support the team to bring in a guy that has done something so serious as making a woman physically uncomfortable. there's just no excuse for that at all. But part of me also says he was only 19 years old. And with so much that we don't fully know about the case, whether he made the mistake or not, and he probably did do something weird. There's been people saying, he turned over and his genitals just kind of fell out of his shorts, but that might happen one time. 9 times, that's very fishy. I mean, if he's really doing something and just whipping his stuff out unwarranted, that's just completely not okay. But the Clippers as an organization are taking a second chance on this guy, giving this guy a second chance. And at 19 years old, we're very immature, brain's still not fully developed. There are a lot of mistakes that a young kid can make. Whether you think that mistake should not be given a second chance, it's totally up to you, and I don't disagree either way. I truly don't. If it were up to me, he probably wouldn't be on the team. But the Clippers have given him a second chance, and it is important to mention that Lawrence Frank did come out and say that the decision to sign Josh Primo on a two-way, by the way, he's not a guaranteed member of the team. He now takes that final two-way contract. The other two-way players were Jordan Miller and Moussa Diabate. So he can play in 50 games for the Clippers this season, but he's going to be spending a lot of time in Ontario with the G League Clippers. So it's kind of a developmental piece, but Lawrence Frank did say that the decision to sign Primo was made with a great deal of conversation with people throughout the organization, and female employees who interact frequently with players were consulted on the decision. He finished by saying, "We took many steps to make sure that we could feel very confident that we will be able to create a safe and comfortable workplace." And by the way, it also says that the Clippers first began considering whether to sign Primo a few months after he was waived. So the Clippers have had their eye on Primo for a while. And look, as far as consulting female employees and all that, I'm happy to hear that those measures were taken, because the women got to know what kind of guy with what kind of reputation is coming into their organization when it's this kind of controversy. We saw Ime Udoka get basically canned by the Celtics for, stuff related to women in the workplace behind the scenes. That whole thing is still fishy. We don't fully know everything that happened there, but there's still a little bit more out there with the Primo thing. And it's just, making women and people feel comfortable in the workplace is major wherever you go. And I really hope that the Clippers taking a second chance on this kid does pay off. As far as the basketball stuff, why would the Clippers... Actually, before I get into that, Primo was apparently checked into like a mental health kind of program, and he said that he had a bunch of trauma, and that's why he made the decisions that he made. But the NBA investigation did find that Josh Primo maintains that his conduct was not intentional, and the league did not find evidence that he engaged in any sexual or other misconduct apart from these brief exposures. Nevertheless, they said this behavior does not conform to league standards and warrants disciplines. Lawrence Frank went on to add that we're not disputing allegations or condoning the alleged conduct, but why we're here is because of all the work he's put in since those allegations, and it's not about Josh performing right now. It's about him continuing to do the work off the court to try to earn another opportunity. He's done a lot of work off the court, and with it, we feel he's worthy of another chance. Coming up, though, how does the Josh Primo signing affect the basketball side of things? Is it a signing that makes sense for the Clippers? Gonna be talking about that. I gotta tell you a little something about DoorDash. Ever in a situation where you're like watching a game, you really don't want to miss a second to go get some food? Well, that's why DoorDash is the best app around that brings food right to your door. And even if your groceries have gone bad or you want to go and you're just too lazy, you can use DoorDash grocery delivery, where you can stock up for the week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. Burnt your last piece of toast, avocados gone bad, no more bananas? Try grocery delivery from DoorDash. You'll get everything you want delivered when you need it right to your door. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNBA. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. All right, so clearly a lot of controversy with the Primo thing. Where I stand is I probably wouldn't have signed him, but I think that he does deserve a second chance. If the organization feels that way, I am open to giving him a second chance and hoping that there are no further incidents of that nature and that he, ends up becoming a model citizen and a great member of the team. And we move and he I don't want to say reinvents himself because I don't know the guy, but redeems himself in the way that, we don't even remember that incident as a 19-year-old kid years down the line. I hope that happens. But as far as signing Josh Primo, I was a little bit taken back because I thought that last two-way spot would be for either Jason Preston or Xavier Moon. Now, right now the Clippers have Xavier Moon and Broderick Thomas on E10 deals, which means that they're not guaranteed to be part of the team in the season or part of the G League team, but they will be at training camp. Right now, with the addition of Primo, the Clippers have 21 people on the roster. We need to cut that number down to 15 plus the 3 two-way contracts, so really 18. It's going to be interesting. Training camp will be competitive. There's going to be some cuts. There may be a consolidation trade. Who knows? I know the Clippers are still out there pursuing deals for either James Harden or Drew Holiday, so there might be some shaking up of things before training camp really starts. Media day is next week, so there are going to be things that are discussed behind the scenes with the front office. There are going to be cuts made, but I was surprised that we signed Primo when I thought that last two-way spot would be probably taken by either Jason Preston or Xavier Moon. So the Clippers had their sights set on Primo. They took a chance with him. And in my opinion, this is the Clippers saying, look, we don't have a first-round pick till 2027. There is a first-rounder waiting in the wings that spent a lot of time in LA recently, that if we try to get him to shed off the label that he's created for himself as the guy that, got kicked out of San Antonio because he made a female uncomfortable on multiple occasions. If we can shed that label off, get him to reinvent himself, redeem himself, and he becomes a piece of a young core going forward into the Intuit Dome, I think that's what they're looking for. Having an extremely talented player who, is a combo guard, can shoot the ball, can handle the ball and pick and roll a bit, has solid size. Look, I don't really know much about Josh Primo. The San Antonio Spurs the last couple of years are not a team I've been watching very frequently, so I can't tell you much except for in the games that I've seen, he seems like he has some athleticism. He can shoot the ball. I've seen him handle the ball and pick and roll a bit. We're going to bring Jeff on from Locked On Spurs in just a few minutes to give us more insight on who Josh Primo is as a player and, the excitement level that they had for him when he was first drafted there. But a lottery pick with talent, we could use that. We don't have a first-round pick till 2027. We have a pick swap, I believe, in 2025. So we do have a first-round pick, but it's with Oklahoma City, so they're going to be pretty good. I don't think that pick's going to be very high. It'll probably be between 15 to 20. So to get a 12th pick, a lottery pick, it's nice. Hopefully he can develop in Ontario, play some good minutes there, and he can show that, man, there's really an NBA player still there the Clippers could maybe use in the future. But as of the team now, the fact that he's on a two-way contract means he's eligible to play 50 games this season. I don't think he's going to get burned for 50 at all because Russell Westbrook is our most reliable player health-wise, him and Zubats. His backup in the few games that Russ doesn't play, you're probably going to see Bones Highland come off the bench. Josh Primo would probably play in those games that Bones Highland starts. But besides that, maybe if Norman Powell's out, but if Norman Powell's out, I would go with Brandon Boston or Amir Coffey before I go with Primo. So that's why I'm so confused at this signing. It pretty much eliminates Jason Preston and what's his name? Xavier Moon's chances of actually being on the Clippers rotation in terms of a third string if Westbrook or Bones don't play. Now it seems like it's Primo, which makes me believe that Jason Preston, who in a couple of days is going to hear if he's going to get guaranteed a contract or not, I don't think he's going to get guaranteed. I think this spells the end for Jason Preston. And a lot of Clipper fans responded to me like, that means he's done. It's curtains. So that could be the end of Jason Preston as a Clipper, which sucks because I have been on this podcast saying that I think he is an NBA player. I think he deserves a chance as a backup point guard for a team, but it seems like that team won't be the Clippers. However, I don't know. If they do guarantee him, that'll be 22 players they have, and they're going to have to make serious cuts. Remember, 18 players, I believe, 15 on the roster, 3 on the two-way contract. So we will see. Now Josh Primo's in the mix. As I said, I don't see why we signed him. I don't think that he is going to get more minutes than an Amir Coffey or a Brandon Boston. I don't think he's higher in that pecking order. And Russell Westbrook is not the guy, knock on wood, that's going to be missing a lot of games. When he misses games, I think Bones Highland steps into that starting role, and then you get Primo maybe for a couple of games. And I just don't think that's going to be many games, hopefully, if Russ stays healthy. So I really don't know. As I said, this seems like a long-term play. Lawrence Frank said it's not about the now with him. He wants to see him, work his way back and show that not only is he a model citizen, but he can help the Clippers on the basketball court down the line and be a young talent because we are devoid of that. But coming up, going to be hearing more about Josh Primo as a basketball player from Jeff Garcia, the host of Locked On Spurs. That's coming up next on Locked On Clips. All right, joining me now, we have Jeff Garcia, host of Locked On Spurs, to come talk to us about Josh Primo, his game, what he knows about what went down in the end there in San Antonio. It's pretty rare that we get a former Spur becoming a Clipper, outside of Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
We don't seem to get many of you guys. So Josh Primo, let me know what you know about him and his game as a player, because, the Spurs haven't really been in the public eye in the last couple of years like they used to be.
Yeah. Look, we'll definitely discuss the off the court incident in a bit, but as far as him as a player is concerned, potential is through the roof right now. I tell you this much: when he was drafted, Brian Wright, GM for the Spurs, made it very clear that they were very high on him. They were pretty much picking him before he became that top 5 pick, and that's how ahead of the game they were. So let me tell you this much. I was at Barclays the night they drafted him. Even I fell out of my seat when I heard the name. I just was stunned. They only worked him out one time ahead of that draft. So he must have really impressed those in attendance for the Spurs to use their, number 11 pick, I believe it was, 12. Thank you. Number 12 pick to get him. So still young, still raw. He spent a lot of time in the G League, and I had I'll definitely send you some articles where I've had a lot of one-on-ones with him during his G League time. He was very open to experiments. So what do I mean by that? So the Spurs, they wanted him to expand his game beyond just his comfort zone. So, for example, being a playmaker. So if you look at his G League stats, you're going to be like, how many turnovers does this kid have? Why is he taking this type of weird shot selection? That was just all for the Spurs to see how he would do in certain situations. So if you do dive into that, Clipper fans, don't freak out. Okay, that's just all the Spurs asking him to get out of his comfort zone to do things that perhaps it'll help San Antonio if he had stayed there. I remember his agent, spoke with me after he was drafted. The kid, I don't know about now, it's been a while, but he still hasn't fully grown out. He still hasn't filled out his size yet. He's still very raw. And for me to know that he's going to the Clippers G League farm, not too surprising considering he's been out of the league for a year. So you figure there's some rust. But I would not be surprised if, just like we saw with the Austin Spurs, we'll see with the Clippers G League team, where he's just forcing the Clippers to say, you know what are we doing? We got to bring him up. He's just wrecking shop in the G League. And I think you're probably going to expect that. Very aggressive to the rim, can finish at the rim, very smart, very high basketball IQ, soft-spoken with the media. He's not very vocal. So, if he does talk with you guys, just expect him to be very short, but very respectful. He's also a type of person I think that this Clipper team can definitely use if they're going to start maybe thinking about a youth movement. He's a very multifaceted. He can fit into the 1. He can fit into the 2. I think he can fit into the 3. He's probably grown some since he left the Spurs. So I think this is a top 15 pick. He was a lottery pick, but just outside of it. The Clippers definitely are going to roll the dice with him. I think the the pros definitely outweigh the cons. Obviously, the cons is he's been out of the league for a year. I know we would dive into what happened in San Antonio. There's that incident. The Spurs were so high on him. And let me tell you this much: his face was plastered everywhere throughout San Antonio,
Wow.
from billboards to to the fact that his face was plastered everywhere in Austin, Texas, not because he was playing with the Austin Spurs, but because he was wearing the San Antonio Spurs jersey, because his face used to be on carriages that would just transport people up and down downtown. He would be Primo's face. They were so high on him that they gave him the position of being the face of one of their corporate sponsors, Self. So they trotted him out. I mean, this is how much the Spurs really invested in him. And I think how much Brian Wright really gambled on him, Primo, that is, becoming, a important piece in the Spurs rebuild. I think he would have been an important piece. I think him and Wemby could have been really something. This kid has the potential to just really, really open eyes in Los Angeles. And I promise you, you're going to see games when he's in their G League farm system, and you're going to be on the Locked On Clippers saying, why is he still there? Bring him up, call him up. What do you got to lose? And that's going to happen, because I did it at Locked On Spurs when he was dropping triple doubles, 30 points a night in the G League. You're probably going to see that as well with the Clippers.
Wow. So do you think, the way you're talking, it sounds like he's better than Bones Highland?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not there yet.
Our young guy,
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, I'm not there to say that. I definitely would be interested to see what aspects of his game he improved upon. Decision making was one of the big ones that he needed to work on as well. Before what happened in San Antonio, that was something that Pop really got on him. There's viral video, and maybe I can find it for you, of a fan who sat behind the Spurs bench and Pop calling a timeout, yanking Primo out and letting Primo have it, because he couldn't understand why Primo was making the decision he was making on the court. He's just telling him what are you doing? And F-bomb this, and bleep bleep this. So decision making at last check was something that he really needed to improve upon. So hopefully that got better for you guys.
Yeah, same criticism about Bones Highland though too.
Yeah,
decision making and all that. So the way you're talking, it sounded like you guys were really big on this guy.
Yeah.
How devastating was it when the news came out that he had been accused of doing these things and waived and what did that? Oh, I forgot to mention, Clipper Nation, he is on a 4-game suspension. They announced that about a couple hours before the news broke that the Clippers were signing him. So he will miss the first 4 games of the season if they choose to even bring him along. Of course, he's on that 2-way contract, and he's not going to play any preseason games. So, but yeah, how was that, hearing that one of your young core is not going to be part of things anymore?
Let me tell you this much. It was so shocking because just a couple of months before that happened, the Spurs were sending fan boxes randomly to fans in San Antonio with Primo's authentic jersey in it. I mean, that's how much I think it blindsided the entire franchise, because just months before that, fans were just showing off. Look, I got my Primo jersey. The fan base was really high on him. He was becoming a fan favorite super fast. And when it happened, it was almost like, where were you when this happened among the Spurs fan base? Where were you when the Spurs won the title? Where were you when Primo got waived? I really thought it was a joke. I thought it was just, I guess, some stupid spam phishing email that was trying to click here for this link to then something happens. The entire media in San Antonio was just floored because it was so sudden. He had just come off a pair of games where he played really good, and then that happened. So there was a lot of what happened, what's going on, what did he do? All signs were pointing to something egregious must have had happened. And sure enough, come to find out, the allegations of him exposing himself multiple times to women, not woman, women, in that final season in San Antonio. It was, the city was just shocked. It was like almost nonstop coverage locally. What did he do, and what happened, and this and that. And then, when Dr. Coughlin came out and did the press conference with her attorney, well, we found out. So there is still a pending charge in the county of San Antonio against Josh Primo that has not been settled yet. So just keep in mind on that moving forward. There is still a pending case in San Antonio regarding Josh Primo and what happened. So, yeah, very untypical Spur thing. You rarely, never, ever hear something like this coming out of San Antonio. With Popovich, and at least under Popovich's watch as he's been on. I like to think that you give kids a second chance, and he's definitely getting a second chance right now in Clipperland. I like the fact that he's on a two-way deal. Let's see how he is. Earn your spot back. Become that projected big-time player the Spurs thought he could be, and he was trending that way fast, really trending that way. So, yeah, it's unfortunate what happened. Fortunate for the Spurs. They won the lottery, so that kind of smoothed things over a bit. But the way they erased him from franchise history instantly. It was just like fast. The billboards were gone. The entire fan shop inside the AT&T Center cleared out of anything Primo related. Pictures of him wrapped in the columns in the AT&T Center, torn down. It was just so quick. The Spurs, obviously, they did their internal investigation. They found something enough to waive him and breach a contract. The NBA, if you read that release carefully, it sounds like their investigation also found something as well that that those incidents did happen allegedly. So I wish him luck. I know Spurs fans will be watching him, how he develops. They're going to be watching those G League games, and if he does get the recall to play with the Clippers, injuries happen. They'll be tuning in. But it's going to be one of the biggest things in San Antonio franchise history is what could have been. Because this kid was just projecting exactly the way the Spurs were hoping, and he was doing it fast. And he was a hero on the road that final season in Brooklyn versus the Nets. I mean, clutch, just knocking down clutch shots to tie the game, to bring the Spurs back and force an overtime game. It was Primo who did that. So, yeah, just wish it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, so you corrected me in one of the articles I was reading. It sounded like it was only one woman, but if he was accused of exposing himself to multiple women, that's definitely
Reread that press release. They say women.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you said, we're hoping he can kind of redeem himself and end up being somebody that the organization praises for his work on and off the court. We'll see. But Jeff, thanks so much. This was really great insight. Let everybody know where they can find you as well, because I know this season for you is going to be a big uptick in the viewers this season.
Let me tell you, if I just type in Wimbayama on any Locked On Spurs web show and put it on YouTube, everybody's tuning in. Yeah, it's the Wimby era. It's set to begin, depending on when this episode gets dropped. Training camp starts the next day. It's here. I will be at Spurs Media Day. It's a madhouse. I will be talking exclusively with Doug McDermott that day as well. So he and I are going to link up and chat about the upcoming season and more. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff, or the X. I'm sorry, I'm still saying Twitter, or X, at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast: YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. The list goes on and on. Part of the Locked On NBA podcast network.
Yep. Make sure you subscribe to them. After you subscribe to Locked On Clippers, we got to surpass Locked On Spurs subscriber count again this season.
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about the signing of Josh Primo. Clearly a lot of potential. Everybody had their mixed opinions on it, but we'll see how it goes. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we're back on Monday. Go Clippers.